Hello, my name's Alan Folmsby, and I'm going to speak to you from my couch near the backyard. Hi, today's program on theoretical physics is about the flat cosmologies in one atom. For example, in an iron atom, there's 26 little universes. And I'm going to be explaining that to you. And I have a little diagram I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to pan this camera around, and you can see one proton and one electron in a sketch drawn by hand. I'm going to get the sketchbook ready for you now. Great, we got the sketchbook now out of my website there at the impuremath.wordpress.com. This is the contraspline sketch here. On the left we see an example of an electric field between a proton and the electron at the bottom. So at the top we can see that there are three black arrows coming out for 3 dimensions of electric space, Ex, Ey, and Ez. Now the neutron takes up one of these at the top, Ez. Now on the left you see Ex and Ey are connecting up to a free electron at the bottom, which has a return dimension, Ht, going the other way. Now in the right diagram, it's a proton and electron again. They're paired in one tiny universe that has a flat 2 space dimensions and 1 time-like dimension going back the other way. So this is the basic setup I'll be talking about quite often. So this is about the flat cosmologies in an atom. And there's an analog between the entire universe, where our cosmology is pairing our laboratories on Earth with the sky. Really, this, and then as the analog is in the atom, each electron and proton are in a flat pair. So in other words, our universe of gravity and everything, cosmology, is in 3-dimensional space interactions of a proton with everything else in the universe. But this flat pair is just a proton, the same proton, interacting with one electron in only 2 dimensions. That allows it to be stronger than gravity. So you can say there's a universe that you all know about, and the small universes in atoms. For example, the element iron would have 26 protons and electrons as 26 small universes held together by the strong nuclear force. And I've divided this left and right in this picture here as gravity continuum on the left and the electromagnetic continuum on the right. So as it says there, gravity uses dimension number 1, 2, 3, and 4 to account for mass, inertia, and classical torque physics. Now the other 4 dimensions of the accounting system that I recommend is for the electromagnetic continuum, dimensions 4, 5, 6, 7 for molecules, wave functions, photons, Planck's constant, in magnetic torque physics, which is something of a mechanistic type of theory. So part of this cosmology is about the infinite loop of replenishment. For eternity in our universe, on the left, the gravity continuum, and on the right of this picture we see the electromagnetic continuum also has an infinite loop of replenishment. In addition, there's a sharing between these two continuums at the center of the proton, where there's a mirror at the center, as I've explained in earlier lectures of this proposed theory. And for this, we have protons taking space in for gravity. And these protons are taking space in, and it comes down from the sky, apparently. Now, an equal amount of time is expelled from the protons. And that dt, the amount of time, is equal to the magnitude of the space, x, y, z. So now the time that is coming out of the protons comes back again as replenishment as space. So any of that space that's being consumed by for gravity is being replenished as the time going out somehow becomes space to come back in, which I'm going to explain soon. And that's replenishment. It's the conservation of continuum. The electromagnetic continuum is very similar, but instead of space being taken into protons, flux is being taken into electrons. Now, flux only has two space dimensions and one time-like dimension going the other way, magnet time. So an equal amount of magnet time is returned to the electron and a replenishment. So there's a flow in a loop from the proton electron, as I was showing you on the picture here. And I can just point this out to you here. So we see there's a loop here. It says space comes out of the proton, goes to the electron, and then magnet time comes out of the electron, and it goes back down to the proton. So there's this loop of two space dimensions. EY is the dark line, and EX, and they come into the electron, and an equal amount of those, the sum of those, comes out going the other way. So that's replenishment. Just like in our big universe, there's also a replenishment going on in the gravity continuum, where, as I was saying, space comes in to the Earth, time grows out in an equal amount, and then all that space that's going in to the Earth gets replenished from the edges of the universe in this idea of cosmology. And it's much like the atoms, just on a much bigger scale. Now this replenishment is a kind of unification of the gravity and electromagnetic, and it's unified inside the proton, at the mirror at the center. Quarks I reject, but the inside of a proton is now proposed to have a negative infinity at the center, which is acting as a mirror. There's also traction between the four dimensions of gravity and the four dimensions of electromagnetism. And the traction ratios are given by standard constants like Newton's universal gravitational constant, the Coulomb constant, and some other things. Now, talking about replenishment, time goes into the replenishment of our entire universe. As I was saying, the baryons in a star consume space and they grow time. Dark energy is at the end of the universe, beyond all the stars, and it's really the electrons that are missing from dark matter. Dark matter is just matter with no electrons. So it's protons and neutrons out with no electrons, and therefore no photon absorption or emission, and also no Pauli exclusion principle to drive protons away from each other. Now, what happens is dark energy at the edges of the universe accepts the time instead of accepting Hx and Hy from its protons. The dark energy is not connected anymore to the dark matter. And all those electrons in dark energy are flying away from us almost at the speed of light. And so those electrons are farther away than any protons and neutrons, by far, by very much. And it's just a halo of electrons that replenishes space for us. So the loop is therefore as follows. Those halo of electrons of dark energy send space back to us, all three dimensions from different directions of electrons. And then that space is consumed by the Earth for gravity, and then the Earth's protons emit an equal amount of time outwards, which sometime later at the speed of light reaches the halo of electrons that are replenishing space for us. So the radical concept really here is just that dark energy takes time instead of Hx, Hy. Those electrons are accepting time instead of being related to a proton. And they emit, therefore, space instead of emitting magnet time. So on the right we see magnet time replenishment is an analog of what's going on in three-dimensional space. But it's a flat kind of replenishment. Electrons consume flux, not space. Protons send more flux to the electron, and that's a loop. A three-dimensional loop of two space dimensions and one time-like dimension. So this loop just continually has a replenishment, and it's similar to the entire universe, where still it's protons and electrons as the fundamental particles. There is just a concluding remark I'd like to make before I sign off for today about these flat cosmologies in an atom. I'm not the first one to say this kind of thing. There's a copyrighted book that I cannot show you here, which was written by Katsuaki Sato and Eiji Saito, and it's a Wiley series for materials. Anyway, it's on. It says in there, as I cannot show you because it's copyrighted. But here's the page I'm reading here. It says right here. Oh yeah, it says. Theory and its empirical validation of the spin Hall effect greatly contributed to the generation and detection of the spin current. These effects are based on the concept of Berry's phase, and it is assumed that a cosmology can be established in solid matter. That was by the editors Katsuaki Sato and Eiji Saito. So other people were talking about this too. They're talking about establishing a cosmology theory in solid matter, in an atom. And these pairs are part of a larger cosmology of eternity, which happened a long time ago, say 100 quadrillion years ago. Everything was expanding back then, and then after a long time, electrons separated from protons to make a plasma, and the Big Bang took place over a course of maybe 1 trillion years as the expansion continued. All these electrons separating made a nuclear chain reaction, and all the ions in the universe emitted a gamma ray, and that made other electrons jump away from the protons and move far, almost at the speed of light. They went to the far reaches of the small expanding universe. That is the dark energy today. Those lost electrons are still near the fringes of observability, but they're too far to pair with local protons anymore. Those unpaired protons are dark matter and elements now, filling intergalactic space transparently. Dark matter will fuse more easily than matter, because without the electrons there's no Pauli exclusion principle to keep them apart. Now this flat cosmology in an atom is about angstrom scale cosmology and sub-universes. These are flat sub-universes in atoms. Spin bonding is compared to spin diffusion in this new concept. Even a mechanistic analogy can be shown as a fan. The rotary fan with blades is much like an atom, like iron, in which a rotation of the blades, these dimensions I've been talking about, EX and EY, are the blades of a fan. Now, I could just carry a fan over here and show you, but what I'm talking about is that these are going around. In other words, as there's a proton current, this proton then would be one of 12 protons in a ring in iron. And inside that ring of protons, there's a current going around spinning. So that makes these dimensions not cross each other, and they get pushed around like a series of fans or windmills interacting with each other. So as part of this theory, I'm trying to unify standard science with my new ideas, and this spin-orbit coupling, which standard science is talking about, is going to be updated for these 8-dimensional ideas I showed you, and it's the coupling that's going to be updated. We don't have to make spin obsolete or orbitals obsolete. Just defining the coupling more articulately, using a finer level of detail than is available by simply regarding energy as being the ab initio type of concept. Alright, so I'm just going to leave you at this time. Thank you very much, and I'll be back Wednesday at the same time, 20 hours GMT, Greenwich Mean Time.